SCP-1230 is an unlabeled, green hardcover book with no apparent exceptional qualities. When SCP-1230 is opened, it displays the phrase, "A hero is born," on the first page viewed, while all other pages will be blank, resetting once the book is closed. This has no obvious effects at first, but upon falling asleep, the reader will dream of a fantasy world where they are the protagonists of a troubled land. Dreamers are completely aware and all senses work just as well as when awake. Results vary depending on the imagination of the reader, and are mostly attuned to fantasies of adventure that the reader would enjoy. In the mind of the reader, these dreams have been documented to last anywhere from 45 seconds to 200 years, but in reality, the reader will usually never be asleep longer than they would normally. Upon awaking, the reader is able to remember every aspect of their dream in detail. In SCP-1230 induced dreams, there is always a character called the Bookkeeper, SCP-1230-1, appearing as a bearded man in a green cloak who claims to be the personification of SCP-1230 himself. SCP-1230-1 has been reported to be very amicable and helpful towards dreamers. It has stated that it enjoys creating these fantasy-scapes, and always tries to shape them in such a way that the dreamer garners the most entertainment out of it. It has expressed sorrow when the dream comes to an end and asks the dreamer to, "Please visit again soon." Experiment 1230-05. Professor B filed a request for access to SCP-1230 and was quickly permitted, given his level 4 clearance. Staff members recalled that Professor B was almost visibly shaking with excitement, and some reported that Professor B was an avid fan of tabletop and role-playing games. Surveillance shows that Professor B opened the book, read the phrase, sat down beside the desk, and promptly fell asleep. Staff members were alarmed when Professor B did not awake after 15 hours and alerted security. The on-site medical staff were able to confirm that Professor B was still alive and in good health. After approximately 24 hours since falling asleep, Professor B began to move, reported to have slowly raised his head and looked around the room, appearing deeply confused. Security entered the room to ensure he was alright, to which he replied, "Where am I?" He was sent to medical, where staff explained where and who he was. Several minutes later, Professor B appeared to have regained his memory and excused himself to the restroom. When 15 minutes passed and Professor B had not exited, a nurse entered to find he had hanged himself with his belt. A scribbled message on the wall revealed his last words, "I can't go back to this." Dr. F went to ask SCP-1230-1 what had happened, but upon opening SCP-1230, all its pages were soaking wet with the same message on every page. "I'm so sorry. I never intended for this to happen. I just wanted to make people happy," repeated over and over. SCP-1230 remained in this state for 3 weeks, and its desk had to be dried bi-weekly. In an attempt to communicate, Dr. F placed a sticky note inside SCP-1230 with the statement, "I'd like to talk to you, if that's alright." The next morning, Dr. F filed a report about a dream he had concerning SCP-1230-1. Upon falling asleep last night, I dreamt I was in a dark void. There was a street lamp, and underneath it was SCP-1230-1 sitting in a puddle. His cloak was visibly soaked and he was sobbing profusely. I remember our conversation. "Bookkeeper, is that you? My God, man, where are we?"
I couldn't think of anything to make for a landscape.
"Bookkeeper, what happened that day? Why did Professor B kill himself? We have to know your side of the story."
He had such an active imagination. I was able to create a vast and beautiful universe for him, and it was obvious that he wanted a life like that for so long. He conquered foul beasts and rescued princesses. He built kingdoms and even raised a family, but he never wanted to leave. He delved so far into his fantasy world that I soon realized he preferred his dream over the real world. I reminded him that this was all merely an illusion, but he wouldn't listen to me. He stated that if he was ever forced to leave, he would immediately end his life. I tried to keep him happy for as long as I could.
"Bookkeeper, how long was the dream from his point of view?"
200 years, Doctor. I did my best, but I could only hold on to him for 200 years. As sweet as dreams may be, eventually we all have to wake up.
I awoke almost immediately after that. I can't believe he spent 200 years in his dream. I'm astounded by his foolishness, but it's such a shame to have lost a brilliant mind to his own delusions." Shortly after the report was filed, surveillance showed Dr. F slipping another small paper into SCP-1230. A few days later, SCP-1230 began showing its usual "A hero is born" greeting once again. When asked what the note said, Dr. F declined to give detailed comment, simply stating that he just gave it some friendly advice.